right, good afternoon and welcome to AI Bytes, Lunch and Learn number 8. Today is our Flint.AI pilot showcase, so we're glad that you're here, or if you're tuning in remotely, asynchronously, thanks for playing. All right, today we're going to talk a little bit about a background of how we came to use Flint and how we're using it. So when I came on board to try to imagine and develop the AI Center here, we knew that we needed some sort of a platform for teachers and staff to create a walled garden of AI for their students to test some things. So we came upon this product actually through an alum. It's a friend of Rohit Nepali, who was one of my former students. Suggested that we look into this. We looked into a number of solutions, and the AI theme team, we met Sohan and Flint and dove right into a pilot. And the pilot started the first of the year, and it's going to go through the end of this school year. And there are a number of faculty using it and some staff, and we encourage anybody else that would like to use it to contact me, and that'll be at the end. So how does it work? We're going to find out in just a second. We have Sohan, the co-founder, is going to join us in just a second, and he's going to tell us exactly how it works, as well as last Friday they unveiled new updates. And so you'll get firsthand on how do those updates. It does look and feel different, and some of the input from our AI theme team, our students, our users, as well as other users across the country and the world who are using this platform. Now it's on to its new iteration, so I'd like to introduce Sohan. Take it away, Sohan.
Thank you for having me and for putting this event together. So like Brennan mentioned, I'm here to convince all of you to join the pilot and start using Flint. No, I'm kidding, but of course that's a little bit of my secret motivation here, but we're really excited to be starting with you all on this pilot. There have been a number of teachers and students that are using Flint successfully so far, and the main way that we're really focused on bringing AI to schools. And Brennan, is my audio through your...
Yes, I know. I'm trying to figure out the audio on...
Okay. Yeah, how about now?
Perfect.
Okay. Too loud? Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so like I was saying, I'm here to convince you to join the pilot and start using Flint. But in reality, yeah, so a lot of folks over at IMSA, some teachers as well as many students, have been using Flint so far. Our main goal with building this platform is to make AI usable in a classroom environment, specifically for personalized learning. A lot of these AI systems out there today, like ChatGPT, are like know-it-all encyclopedias, and they'll basically do anything that you ask them, including writing your essay for you, which has made it concerning to use these tools in an academic setting. The way that Flint's different, and the way that it works, is that a teacher can go in and design an AI tutor that their students can then interact with. And when you're designing that AI tutor as a teacher, you can put in any sort of learning objectives and any materials that you have on hand that you want the AI to pull from. And what we let teachers do in the platform is not only create those AI tutors, but actually see exactly how their students are interacting with the system to kind of get help whenever they need it. So I think one of the biggest and most popular use cases over at IMSA so far has been using Flint for computer science. So computer science teachers have gone in and said, like, okay, I'm teaching my students about this type of programming, these are the sort of problems that they're currently working through, and the AI will actually dynamically give students different problems and walk them through those kind of exercises in a way that if a student ever gets stuck, the AI will actually pause and help them out. Or if the student's doing a really good job, the AI will automatically level the content to kind of map to student and progressively give them more challenging information to kind of keep them engaged. So in the next few minutes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to screen share what the Flint platform looks like. I'll briefly cover some of those updates I've already mentioned that we just launched last Friday. And I'm going to be talking you all through why we made those changes to the platform and what we see the future of AI tutoring in schools is going to look like. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull up my screen share, and I guess we can just all cross our fingers if that would work. Okay, actually, yeah, it says supposed to disable screen sharing. So I don't know if, yeah, what you can turn that on. Great. Right now? Okay, perfect. Great, y'all can see that? Yeah, thumbs up or something? Yeah, okay, awesome, amazing, amazing. So this is basically what the Flint platform looks like. What I'm showing you now is a demo environment, so it's gonna be a little bit different for any of you that have tried the platform so far. But I'm gonna assume that some of you don't have access yet or haven't made an account, so I'm just gonna walk you through the basics of how it works. So when you first log into Flint, you'll see your school's page. And on the top right-hand corner here, you'll see an AI that's been created specifically for your school. So in this case, I'm in this demo environment called Orchard Academy, and we see this Orchard Scholar up here, which is there as a 24/7 kind of helpful chatbot that students can go in and interact with. And any school administrator, let's say the administrators at IMSA, can go in and customize this chatbot, maybe by attaching a link on the IMSA website, so that the AI can actually learn more about IMSA and provide students with questions about the school's website, or if you upload the handbook, students can go in and actually ask questions about the school's policies and get a quick response. That said, the main way that teachers have been using Flint is to actually create assignments and AI tutors for their students. I'm going to basically walk you through real quick how that works. So as a teacher of the platform, you can go ahead and click Create Group, and you can basically make a page for your students. So for example, you can say something like Advanced Java Programming. You can go ahead and customize this group for fun, and click Create. And then down here, once you add your students to the platform, you can go in and customize an AI tutor to help students out in exactly what you're covering in class. So for example, I can say something like, students should be able to code binary search and answer questions about time complexity or search algorithms. If you wanted to, you could attach a code snippet for the AI to use. You can attach any sort of website links with external content, or even a file. So you can have some sort of handout or worksheets or code files that you were already giving to your students. You can kind of bring those to life in the platform. Now when I go ahead and click Create, you go ahead and see that the tool will basically give teachers a few different options of how you can have students go through binary search kind of coding practice on the platform. And what's created at the end of this will be a one-on-one conversation between the AI and your students. So for example, if I chose this second activity, this algorithm time complexity quiz, and click Next, Flint will actually go ahead and set this assignment up for the teacher. So it's going to basically design the underlying prompts for the AI to make sure that the AI only follows a set of rules where it's not giving away the answer to the student and is actually helping the student work through the problem themselves, and will even go through and create a grading rubric for the teacher. So these styles of assignments are very different than a traditional worksheet or coding assignment, but the end result is that the student can go in and get help exactly tailored to their level. So for example, if we click this A-level preview here to see an example of what would happen if a student does a great job, you would actually see how the AI would go ahead and give students questions and progressively move on to more complex questions as they went on. So as you can see here, the AI is going to ask the student, hey, can you go ahead and write me a search algorithm? And when the student does that, the AI will go ahead and give them feedback on it. And if I go ahead and kind of show you a manual preview where I'm really stuck to show you what would happen if a student was struggling, let's say I went in and I said something like, honestly, I have no idea what time complexity is and I don't know what binary search is. You'll see that the AI would actually go ahead and help you out, and all the messages that are sent between the student and the AI are all saved on the platform, so a teacher can go back and actually see where did these individual students get stuck and where might they need extra help. To kind of show you what that looks like, I'm going to go into an assignment I made in the past and show you what sort of feedback teachers can see. So I'm going to go into this social studies class that I made earlier. And on the right-hand side, teachers can see all the different sessions that the students are having with this AI system. Again, like Britta mentioned, this is all walled garden, so all the data is kept private for students, although teachers and administrators can view that information. So for example, I can click on Ruby's tutoring session here. I can see that she had this back and forth conversation with the AI about the JFK's role in the Cuban Missile Crisis. On the right-hand side here, I can see a summarization of how Ruby did. So some of the strengths she displayed in that conversation, as well as some of the areas for improvement. And on the left-hand side here, I can view overall analytics for my whole class. So as a teacher, you can go in, have your students do a coding exercise, set of math problems, or even debate against AI about a certain topic in the humanities. And in a few minutes, you're going to basically be able to see this whole summary of how each of your students did, and some areas where they might need extra support and extra help. And one thing we've already seen some teachers do is then go ahead and create follow-up tutors to help their students by digging into exactly where they might have some gaps in their understanding. So if you're currently thinking through how to use AI with your students, Flint basically takes a lot of the most powerful AI models. We're actually using GPT-4 as a primary AI model under the hood, and turning that into a system where you can easily go in and use this really powerful technology to give your students extra help. And one of the other exciting updates with the new platform, if I go back out to kind of like a computer science example, is in addition to those assignments that teachers can create for their students, that students can access by clicking in here and accessing the specific assignment, every student for every class that they're using Flint in also has access to this 24/7 AI tutor. So as you can see on the right-hand side, there's this Java Basics Buddy, which is there to help the student with any sort of Java question they have. So students can go in at any point, even if they're at home, doing homework, working on some quiz, or I should say, at the dorms over at IMSA, they can actually go in and ask any sort of question and get extra help at any point of the day. And all of this is fully customizable by the teacher as well. So for example, if I wanted to go to the back end of this Java Basics Buddy, this AI tutor that's available for my students, I can click here, I can go into the settings, and for example, I could say something like, be a debugging assistant that only speaks in haikus. And I can click revise, and now this 24/7 AI tutor will be a lot less useful because it'll only speak in haikus. But the notable thing here is that it's now going to help students with their Java code. So if I said something like, the variable isn't incrementing, with some very bad spelling, you would see how the AI kind of helps me out, and it's now kind of speaking only in haikus. So obviously that's a fun example, but goes to show the use, kind of versatility that we're aiming for here. One of the most interesting pieces of data that we observed from users at like the 60 different schools that we're partnered with so far using the platform is that while teachers would go in and make very custom activities and assignments for the students to complete, a lot of the most high usage came from students using this tool for extra resources. So as an extra help assistant, kind of as a tutor at any time of the day. So our update kind of is focused on bringing that 24/7 tutoring to students at any time in a way that's still fully customizable by you as the teacher. So yeah, we've been really excited to be partnered with IMSA so far. And if you're interested in joining the pilot, let Britta know. We'd love to have more teachers and students on using the tool. And if you're a teacher that's not currently on the pilot, maybe ask some of your students if they've used Flint so far and what their experiences has been so far. But yeah, really excited to be here, and that's pretty much it for me.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Sohan.
Oh, I can't hear you all, by the way.
Okay, thank you, Sohan. Does anybody have any questions specifically for him while he is still live with us? If not, well, while we're thinking, if I could have the panelists come up, the faculty panelists.
Is this already live for us?
Yes, it's live. Yep, there's your question, it's answered. So
I haven't used it too much, but if I wanted to, so my students have access because I've invited them into a group I've created? Like if, can you hear me?
yes.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, could you repeat that? I think your voice.
So I teach in world languages. I have access to Flint.AI. I got signed up through IMSA here. But my students don't all have access to Flint. So if I create a group and I want to give them a task, they have access to it because I've invited them into that group. You just need to ask her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, if you take the link to the group, I can pull my screen share again and kind of show you what that will look like. You can basically easily invite your students to it. So let me pull it up real quick. You mentioned your world language teacher, right? Let's say you're teaching French 1. You've created this group for your students. You've created a couple of these AI tutors for them to interact with. They can be multilingual, so they can actually speak with students in French or any language. You can click share a group, and then either you can copy the link to the group and send it to your students via some other system, or if you put their emails in here, they'll actually get an invite. So for example, if I invite my co-founder as a student in here, I can click invite, click update, and I'll have the option to send them an email, kind of heads up saying, hey, you've been added to French 1. So that's how you can basically go through and invite your students. And I can chat with Britta about this, but by default, I believe for IMSA, anyone with an IMSA EDU email address or whatever the school's domain is will be able to sign up, unless that option's turned off by an administrator.
Feel free to come on up for the panel. And Sohan is going to listen in on the panel so you can unplug him and put him out here in the audience. He knows he's going to be part of the audience. Okay, Eric? All right, we're going to start first with Dr. Dong, because I know you might have to be moving. So we have some questions that we want to ask each of the panelists. Let's try the other one.
Oh, you can't have two on at once?
Okay, turn yours off.
We're just checking on the microphone, okay?
Okay, better? Yes. All right, you have to speak right into it, straight. All right, so we have some questions that we're going to be asking each of our panelists. And the first one is, how is it being used in your class or SIR, however you're using it? You can address any of these. And what potential is there for AI education? We're going to go through these. And do you also feel that generative AI is a threat or an asset to education? So let's start by how you're using it.
Sure. Okay, so I've used it in with my SIR students. I gave them an assignment. Since it's for research anyway, it's not a graded assignment. But I said that I want them to chat with it about the topic. So the idea was I gave them a topic that we had covered that's pretty abstruse, so you won't find a lot on the internet on it, and see how well it would do on it. I gave it some guidelines, and what I found was it did pretty well. In general, like I felt from reading the transcript, I could assess pretty well how the students were doing. For this one, I wouldn't trust the auto grading because I discovered that students could, if the students got something wrong in a way that wasn't easily searchable, the AI seemed to kind of assume they were right. And in a few cases, it would get stuff confused. Like someone used an example that I had given them about spontaneous symmetry breaking involving whether you reach the right or left hand to grab a cup. And it thought it was giving an example of left-right symmetry, which is completely different, and said that it was right. Said, well, great example. So it can get confused by things when you get to, I mean, I deliberately tried to push it way off. I also used to work my intro physics class, and I just had to do, I know that math isn't its strong suit, so I had to do qualitative questions about Newton's third law, and with a few specific things I was aiming for. And it seemed to go pretty well. In fact, when I was going over the test the next time, students were asking questions about it, and they're like, oh, I already know why I missed this one, because the AI told me that it was, that gravity and normal force are never Newton's third law pairs. And I'm like, okay. So something worked out from there. That one, I actually want to, right now my research got really busy, so I'm not going to follow up with them right now, but I'm going to try another assignment on the sophomores and see if it works to kind of reinforce conceptual ideas. I think seems promising.
Great. Want to share how you're using it?
So I used Flint in Spanish 2 and Spanish 3 courses. I've used different functions. The chat function was the first one that I explored a little bit. Can you hear me okay? The second one was essay writing. So students had a prompt and they basically had to write an essay and interact with the tool as they were writing, because I was focusing on the grammar. So I wanted them to make sure that their grammar was okay, and to negotiate whether they were using the right past tense in Spanish when they were describing or talking about an action that happened in the past. I've also used the, what am I forgetting, function? So there's the chat, there's the writing, and there's another function that I'm forgetting.
Maybe still on
What's
notes.
the other function? Is the chat, is the writing? Is it speaking?
The speaking, yes, thank you. I was forgetting something. So the speaking one was great because they had to really think on their feet right at the moment. This was with Spanish 2, a very basic conversation about a situation that happened at the airport. So they had to come in and ask a bunch of questions and then have the AI tool respond and kind of back and forth. So depending on how much the students engaged, they got the better results as opposed to students who are just kind of short in their answers or dismissive. So those were kind of my experiences. With the writing section, I thought it was really great, but students still don't get the part where they can interact with AI to make the writing better. So they're just kind of writing their essay and then copying and pasting a whole paragraph to see how well they did, as opposed to doing a more interactive thing as they're writing. And that's something that maybe I need to prompt better with my students first, and then have them go into the program and use it. So those are my experiences.
Yeah, that's fine.
Rachel, do you mind pulling up the slideshow? Okay, so I will admit that I haven't actually used Flint in the classroom yet, but I will be later this semester. Students just submitted an essay in LE2. They'll have them see what it can do as a writing tutor for revisions. And in digital literacy studies this semester, there's an entire AI unit where we're actually not going to do the project I'm going to show today for various reasons, but we are going to, I think we'll probably be interacting with the chatbot a lot, and Flint will be our primary platform. But what I'm going to show is stuff that, so the first project I did in Neve's class last year, which means we have a handy example, willing participant. And this one I'll use is going to be, so you're on the spot, Sohan, it will be LE2 reviews Flint.AI or Flint.AI this year. But last year, I was sort of, Wild West with ChatGPT and Bing a little bit. I always want students thinking critically about AI as well as thinking about its practicality. What can we do with it creatively, but also sort of how is this a new and interesting form of textuality? Can you guys the slide, Rachel? So I showed students, so this is actually a friend of mine who I worked with at Georgia Tech, who, once he made this video, he got made fun of on the internet for looking like a comic book guy. But it's a video from Wired magazine where an English teacher sort of grades ChatGPT output. So this is probably 4 months after the introduction of ChatGPT in November 2022. And so I showed that to students and then said, we're going to do this with your videos, but I also wanted them to engage with text in more traditional ways. So can you guys slide, Rachel? Sorry. So student groups work together to basically close read ChatGPT output alongside close readings of the text. So in the name of critiquing the output of ChatGPT, they were actually engaging with the text itself. I think they got really into it, partly because videos are fun, but also harder to, it's harder to produce ChatGPT that replaces a video than it is to replace an essay. But I was really into, so I'll show Neves, and Neve is a very talented writer and reader, but even students who struggled more in the class got really into this assignment and did excellent work. So basic idea is they to produce creative and analytical outputs about 2 texts, and then to critique them with reference to the original text, which is close reading. So on the next slide, I think there's a link to Neve Patel's strong video. I'll show about 1.5 minutes of it. So what Neve did at this moment is he had, so the 2 texts are Nella Larson's Passing and Toni Morrison's Recitative. He inserted, Cisneros' House of Mango Street, I'm sorry. He inserted a character from one text into the other and had the AI imagine how that character would experience the world of the other text. So. If the sound works.
Praised ChatGPT and admit that this response was somewhat comprehensive in terms of argument. Through close reading, we noted that the tone in the voice in phrases like refuse to let their spirits be broken and I am in awe of their tenacity is relatively conforming to Irene's support of women in minority communities. this tone is also present in much of the response, such as in the following section. Being a woman of color in a society that constantly seeks to diminish our worth, I recognize the struggles that the women of Mango Street face every day. In this excerpt, phrases like recognize the struggles and bear the burden of poverty acknowledge the struggle of women of color. Once again, ChatGPT did a commendable job connecting the similarities between the hardship of women of color over the time periods of passing and the house on Mango Street, which are wildly different. The AI also cited previous works in commenting how the men in this neighborhood are quick to dismiss the opinions and needs of the women, connecting to Irene's supposed mistrust and speed in judging, as well as Irene's personal experiences with men who undervalue her as a person, such as Brian, exemplified by quotes such as this one, where Irene conveys a tone of reluctant submission, but Brian's insensitivity to this further highlights the dynamic between Irene and Brian. When analyzing the tone, however, there are many.
Okay, so thank you. So, Neve's group took one approach, others did sort of more wacky stuff. They were throwing around cones and transitions. It was all pretty cool.
Eric, can I ask a clarifying question? So in this example, Irene Redfield is not a character of the House of Mango Street.
Right, so it's a character in Nella Larsen's Passing, which is
Does that take place in a similar or different era?
It's pretty different. So one is in the 1920s, one is in the 1980s or 1970s. So the unit was designed around drawing connections between texts in which people were sort of thinking through their identities. And the connections that Neve found were pretty cool.
So then, the narrative that was on the screen, was that generated by the AI, or was that and the student analyzed it, or was that how was the AI?
Both. So first, it's a fictional text generated by the AI that imagines what it would be like if this character were in that novel. And then, as he's sort of analyzing it, he shows on the screen a passage from Passing itself, the 1929 novel. Right. So it's combining, thinking through what the AI is implicitly or explicitly claiming about the text in relation to what the text actually says.
So the student's task is to analyze and approve what the AI has produced.
So it's simultaneously analyzing what the AI has produced and building an argument about the text relative to that argument. Does that make to the source text, to the novel? Right? So it's doing the traditional thing by sort of building an argument through critique of the novel thing.
So I'm just trying to understand. And what was the student's task?
So critical thinking about the key skill of LE2 is close reading, right? So it's thinking about how words are put together to create meaning in literary texts. So first they're thinking about how ChatGPT is producing meaning, but then they're sort of, the point of the assignment is not really to create ChatGPT. The point of the assignment is to demonstrate knowledge of Passing, which Neve did quite well in his critique of ChatGPT. Right? So there's a book about writing called They Say, I Say, which argues that all academic writing starts with somebody's response to what somebody else has said. So here, ChatGPT is kind of the they say, what Neve does is the I say.
So what was Neve's output then? Like writing a text, an analytical text, what you're talking about? Or was that the video we saw?
The video is the output.
The video.
Yeah.
All right.
Which involved writing a script, which involves producing close reading too.
Yeah, so but doing that critical thinking, what's to prevent the student from just using the AI to create that output?
There's no guarantees. And I will say I did on this assignment I don't think they did. I think it's more disincentivizing that, right? This fall I did an assignment where I saw a little bit more suspect script behind the scenes, which is, it's entirely undetectable. Really.
The assignment created a video,
Yeah.
right? So that was a way of authenticating the source. I mean, Joe, I could say, as a math educator, what's to say that a student doesn't do their homework by asking, copying down someone else's proof, right?
Yeah, well, I like the idea of the video, and then, they can do that now without AI, right? There's
Right,
ways to do
that's
that.
correct.
I'm just wondering how we can get that output to be really focused on the student.
Yeah. And I will
Not
say,
taking those shortcuts.
yeah, and there's just no guarantees, right? And the AI detectors just don't work.
You can solve that question.
If we think they work, or they're like Turnitin thinks they work, that they're lying to us. But you know, I think Neve, frankly, I think Neve and Brian, his partner, learned as much from doing this as from writing a traditional essay. And even if they can still use ChatGPT or Flint potentially to game it, I think the students got invested enough in this project that they didn't, by and large. Whereas a more traditional essay, I see a lot of paragraphs that sound a lot like ChatGPT these days.
Did we see the AI critiquing the video? Is there an interaction between?
No. We didn't take that step.
You could
right,
take that step.
we could take that step with their scripts. I think eventually we'd be able to take that step with video. But we weren't there yet last year, right? It was just using ChatGPT and Bing. Sort of avoiding the rules by saying they can use my laptop if they wanted.
Did you use the oral part with the Spanish?
I did.
What was that like, the feedback you got? The students interacting?
Different kind of feedback. For example, they were saying it's too fast. The conversation goes too fast. When they tell it to slow down, it doesn't slow down. Some of them were able to handle it. I think it all depends on how you begin the conversation too, because it kind of sets the tone. So there were different people had different difficulties.
What do you mean by begin the conversation? You're talking about the prompt that you gave?
Right, so you get a prompt and you hear it, and then you have to respond. And it records you, it doesn't write it. Actually, it does transcribe it, but you're recording yourself, so you're not writing anything. And so depending on how much you respond and how much you give, then the next prompt comes forward. So it's all very interactive. And if you give very little, then you might get a whole lot again, and you're kind of stuck. Right? But if you give a little more, it kind of feeds into that. If that makes sense.
It's possible, though, to converse by chat if the students feel like the speaking is too fast.
I think if it's set to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sohan, if it's set to oral conversation, you're not writing. It doesn't allow you to write, you just have to speak. Yeah. And that's where some students got really overwhelmed and said, oh, I don't know what they're saying, so I can't go on. That happened too. Yeah.
There's a way to edit it where you can basically turn on both. So you have AI students and they can read my school, so they can type or speak.
Okay.
So you can basically decide, like, do I want to make this a
Oh, yes, that is right.
only assignment or writing only or both?
Yes. Yes, so there is a function, and when you're setting up your prompt, it asks you whether you just want it to be a spoken assignment, or whether you want the students to be able to write. So I turned off the writing, because I really wanted them to practice the speaking. But you can do it. You can do both.
Neve, you want to come up here? We have an empty seat, and so we were the first 3 to actually put an assignment up on ChatGPT, on Flint, and so to test it once we got access, and we tried purposefully to make it fail, right? To test it, and because we hadn't sent it out to the faculty, so I set something up. Neve and Rachel are my interns. So I'd like to get a little perspective from the interns about that assignment and how we went about kind of diving in, and then some of the updates, the assignment that I gave today.
So the first assignment that we did was just simply like, how can AI be used in an educational setting? And what Rachel and I, what we tried to do is we tried to sort of break it. We tried to find loopholes. And some things that we found were that with the friendly AI, it is very willing to give students the answers to anything they're asking for. And one thing that I found really interesting was that if you take like a worksheet and you upload that to the AI, it can actually do the worksheet for you. You could just submit a PDF
and it'll still be able to give you the answers, which is definitely a little concerning, especially with like how students can use this for dishonest purposes. However, there is a way to like change that AI like functionality to not give students answers. So like I believe the chatbot is set to strict AI now, which will not give student answers as opposed to friendly AI. And the second assignment we did was, which we just did earlier today, was just like how can an AI center be built? And that was just another chat style assignment. And what I noticed there is that the AI, I guess it carried the conversation very much. In a way that like it would create different opportunities for students to like respond. So like it would start with an initial question, then we answer it. The AI would take your answer and then like sort of elaborate on that, give you some more like things to think about, and then ask you how can you combine these or how can you utilize these. So there's sort of this gradual, I guess like a learning curve with the AI where it starts off with like simple prompts, like a simple prompt, just like whatever the teacher puts in, but then it starts to become more complex and I guess more individualized as each student has different ideas. So I thought that was really interesting. Grading wise, I thought like it was okay. Like the feedback that it gave was definitely like accurate to an extent, but it was also not able to detect what like it was completely off topic. Like the AI would try to steer you back on topic, but often if you give something like completely random or something that like deviates from it, the AI sort of like takes that and like runs with it a little bit. So it's not like, it definitely allows students to create their own individualized conversation. That I think is very valuable for the learning process. So I think that's really good, but it also does have some of the more AI limitations that we'd see in any AI model.
So on the first assignment, I asked them on day one to fail the assignment. And Neve was like, I don't fail assignments. I want you, because I don't grade them. They don't get a grade. They get a pass fail. So we gave bogus, bad answers, and they did get graded F. And it was a timed assignment, so they actually got an F. So today, Neve wanted to redeem himself, and he worked very hard on the assignment, got an A, but then that was graded by Flint, right? But we asked Rachel not to get an A, actually to try to get a C. But Rachel, what did you get?
Got a B.
You got a B. She threw things in there like, okay, for an AI center, here are the things that you would do. She says to have a cook-off. She threw some random stuff in there, and the AI said,
Great suggestion.
great suggestion, right? Right. So, but then we started to go, hey, what if we had an AI cook-off? So, like, yeah, so maybe it is a thought, it's a brainstorming partner, right? So it's like that, which we thought was totally random and off topic, AI could bring to another level. Okay, so we're gonna move to the next question, is what potential is there for AI educational tools such as Flint? Who would like to answer this?
I mean, I think there's potential. I think like right now, the advantage of generative AI is its fuzziness, right? Relative to other computation. I think we think of that as a disadvantage in some ways, right? That it's not always sure of its answer. But I think when people say, oh, it gets some things wrong, they probably haven't spent very much time in a classroom with too many teachers. Who also get stuff wrong and don't have the right approach for every student necessarily, even really well-informed teachers. We're sort of seeing what it does right now. And Marta's had good experiences, some mid experiences, but clearly there's something worth exploring.
I did a final project using AI. I didn't tell the students to use just Flint. I told them they could use anything that they had at their disposal. And they had to write a comic story. So it had to have images, and I gave them the option of having them completely AI generated, or they could be hand-drawn if they preferred. And they had to have a whole story written by an AI tool. So some students actually opted for using Flint for that. I have a lot of examples. They're so different, all of them. Fascinating what they were able to come up with. And then I got feedback from students. What was the challenge? So the challenge was really for the images to be uniform. I guess a lot of platforms will give you images that, or there's a limit to the number of images that you can generate. But all in all, they were very excited for this project because they thought, what an amazing thing to be able to create something that is completely original, but they didn't really have to write it. They did have to watch whether there was a storyline, whether the characters were developed well, whether there was a dialogue that made sense. But in the end, they were really just exploring kind of with technology and coming up with something really cool. So I was nicely surprised to hear that they liked the project, they were enjoying it, and they thought that it was a great way to explore what's out there in terms of AI possibilities.
Neve, do you have some comments from the student point of view?
So I think what's great about Flint.AI is that it sort of makes like this AI tool very accessible. That like every student in the class can have access to this. And Flint is, I'd say, significantly more powerful than something like ChatGPT, just because of the way that it can analyze code, it can take website links and then like base its answers off of that. It can take attachments, and having that kind of powerful AI tool that does have like restrictions based on what Britta sets, what the teacher set, having that sort of like AI tool that's very powerful but then can also be used in like a safe way is I think very valuable, especially since it's accessible to every student in the classroom. So I think like especially with projects like Dr. Redberg's project or your project with like the you know, using AI to create something original and then analyzing that or creating a claim off of that, being able to sort of, I guess, take an original work made by a computer and then make a critique about that. I think that's really important, and I think it's a very interesting concept to look into, which is why it's really exciting that a lot of these classes have incorporated AI tools into their curriculum.
Thank you. Okay, our final question is, do you feel that generative AI is a threat or an asset to education? Anyone want to take that one on?
I'll act like Brett GPT here and say there are many ways we might view generative AI as both a threat and an asset to education. You know, clearly, you know, in the wake of ChatGPT, as an English teacher, you know, there's a freak out moment, no doubt. I found myself reading academic articles from the mid-1980s about the introduction of calculators to the math classroom, and there's sort of ensuing panic around that. I kind of think that the moral panic around GPT might be a little bit more justified than the initial moral panic around calculators. But you know, the studies in the mid-80s, like sort of after 10 years of these things existing, were basically like, these are not a threat to students' math skills as long as students still learn the skills with pen and pencil and paper. And for me, as a teacher who's always been pretty computer forward, this year I've been thinking about what that pen and paper looks like in my English class. Because, like, honestly, like writing in computational environments right now, there's a good article by Stephen Marche about this constant question you have with any piece of text today. Is this written by a human or a computer? I've gone very traditional in some ways. I've reintroduced AP-style in-class writing to my classes, even though 5 years ago I would have dismissed that as a bad practice in the writing classroom. I will say it's brought something back that's been useful. They're still writing essays on computers though too. And you know, we're clearly going to be trying stuff out throughout the semester. So I think as long as you know, policies don't overreact either in the forward direction or the backward direction, as long as people still make wise pedagogical choices and are really like careful about what their students actually know how to do, it can be an asset.
I agree with everything you just said. I think also in moral languages it's a little different for us because it's a lot more obvious if students turn in papers that are written by ChatGPT or you know, by Flint, although Flint is different in that way, and I really like it for that. because like I said, the assignment that I gave to my students, they actually were writing it themselves. So they were able to check their work, but they were writing everything themselves, and that I liked. But it's really easy to spot an essay that is a ChatGPT essay in Spanish, whichever level really. It's very obvious because if it doesn't align with what I'm seeing in class, then it's not your work. So that's the problem that I'm spotting. And I want my students to be able to use the tools that are available to them, but I want them to also be consistent with what they know. Is this really the kind of work you're able to produce if I have you sit down and write an essay? Or is this something that, is completely not your work? And you just gave ChatGPT a prompt and basically had it write it for you. So that's the problem that I'm seeing. But I do want to say that having a little bit of both, I think, helps a lot. So a little bit of the conservative, let's sit down and write an essay and I'll give you a paper dictionary. And you're going to struggle through this whole process and see, what you learn in as a result. Or also at the same time, let's try to interact with an AI tool and see how you can make your work even better and check your work that way.
For the work that I do with students or entrepreneurship and innovation, I think tools like Flint and ChatGPT are thought partners, right? It's something to get your line of thinking. It stretches, just like the idea of a cookout, right? It pushed us in a different direction of thinking because we thought that was a bad idea, right? And then we go, no, that could actually be an interesting new way to do it. So for us in an internship, we really like the tool. It's not a traditional class. We don't get graded. So I haven't looked, does it have a pass-fail, Sohan? Does it have a pass-fail feature or not?
Yeah, you could adjust the rubric to make it binary.
Okay, so we can make it pass-fail. They're gonna pass anyways, but yes. Anyway, so do you have any thoughts?
I think, just like with I guess as Dr. Albert said, calculators and the internet, there's a lot of potential of AI, both as an asset and a threat, but I think it just depends on how it's used and I guess the opportunities that there are in the classroom. I know as a student, AI definitely has a presence in school, and it's not something that we can ignore. I think it's something that students have to be aware of, be proactive about, and then also use it wisely.
Eve, I have a question for you. Could you talk about a little bit about the feedback and the analysis you got from the AI on some of the work that you produced?
Yeah.
What did you feel? Was that useful? How did you experience that?
So I think the feedback that we got from the AI was definitely it was good feedback. We've only done it with internship related questions, but since they've been more, I guess, open-ended entrepreneurial questions, the feedback I got was pretty good just because it gave us suggestions, like Britta said, as a thought partner, as well as in the grading, the feedback was more so as oh, there's these innovative ideas, you could build on these ideas. So it's mainly conceptual feedback. I haven't really done it with math and computer science, where the feedback would probably be more tangible and concrete. I don't know if someone you have something to say about feedback, how that works.
It also depends what the prompt is. It depends kind of on the prompt. So like I said, I was trying to have my students write in the past tense, and I was having them basically check their work with Flint. And so it will tell you, check out this verb that you use this way, it should have been conjugated differently. So there's that, which for us is really useful, I think.
Okay, do we have any other questions for the panelists or Sohan? We're gonna wrap up. I think we've had some great questions today. Can we forward the slides? So we've got a session 9 AI Bytes, which is actually the IMSA AI Vision Showcase. And that is coming up in 2 weeks at 3:00 p.m. in the ACT Pit. And as an hour-long session, and we invite everyone to come, faculty, staff, and students. and so on, I don't know that someone's coming, but.
Yeah, we love that.
Oh, any final words from Sohan? Okay. Do you have any, it's gonna be hard for them to hear, but do you have any final words you want to say, Sohan? I'll repeat them.
Yeah, just that AI is like one of the most fast-changing things right now. And I'm so impressed by like how forward-thinking everyone at IMSA that I've talked to so far, students and teachers have been. When it comes to like embracing it, but then also like figuring out exactly where like the edges of the sandbox are, and like figuring out where it's safe to play, where where the technology's not ready yet. And I think that we'll look back in a few years and be grateful that you made this investment in time to like have this conversation. So yeah, I've just been in awe of like how forward-thinking y'all are about the technology.
So Sohan is impressed with how forward-thinking IMSA is and how that we're using this as a test bed and a sandbox and testing the edges of where it works and doesn't work. And we're trying to be very inclusive as we learn together because it is fast-moving. And that's one of the reasons we're doing this is to do better and to learn with it. And that's why we have AI Bytes as a community to learn about AI together, faculty, staff, and students, and then have our YouTube playlist as well. Is there another slide? I can't remember. Oh, join Flint. So if you haven't, you could email me, bmckenna@imsa.edu, and let me know if you're a faculty or staff member that would like to join. Happy to add you. And then when I add you, you can also send me, cut and paste your students' emails. I don't need their names, just their emails. I'll add them, but they can also do it themselves now, right? You can create a group, which is your class, right? A group, and then you can add your students, and we'll invite them, Sohan, directly from, if I add a teacher, and then they cut and paste new, or do I have to still invite them?
No, the teacher can now invite them.
Okay, the teacher can now invite them. All right, that means I don't have to do the work there. So this is getting better. We decided to go with you because we saw the potential, and you're working with us, and it's evolving, and we appreciate that. Yes, you do have to accept the invitation. Yes.
So that's an extra step before
Yeah.
they go into the assignment.
Right. Yep. Okay. Thank you everybody for tuning in today, and we hope to see you in 2 weeks.